I'm 75 years old, and I need you to hear something important before we go any further. I don't say that lightly. At my age, you learn not to waste words. What I'm about to tell you took me most of my life to understand, and I don't know how much time I have left to explain it properly. It doesn't matter if you pray every day, if you stopped believing years ago, or if you've never known what you believe at all. This isn't about joining anything or rejecting anything. It's about being honest. And for most of my life, I wasn't. I spent nearly 50 years convinced I had it figured out. Not just about God, but about how the world worked, who was right and who was wrong, what mattered and what didn't. I mistook confidence for truth. I mistook certainty for wisdom. And I didn't realize until much later that I had been asking the wrong questions the entire time. I grew up in a house where faith was the air you breathed. Sunday mornings weren't optional. They weren't discussed. My father was a deacon, a good man, serious, disciplined, proud of his certainty. I learned scripture the way other kids learned multiplication tables. Before I could tie my shoes, I could recite verses about salvation and judgment. Everything had a label. Everything had an answer. God was orderly. Life was linear. Do the right things, believe the right things, and things would work out the way they were supposed to. And when they didn't, well, you didn't talk about that part. Doubt was treated like a moral failure. Questions were dangerous. If something didn't make sense, the problem wasn't the explanation. It was you. So I learned early on how to stay quiet, how to nod, how to repeat words that sounded confident even when they didn't feel true. I thought faith meant having the right map and never straying from the path. I didn't understand yet that life doesn't care how carefully you've drawn your lines. When I was 23, my best friend died in a car accident. His name was Daniel. We'd grown up together. He was the kind of person people trusted without trying. Kinder than me. More generous, less judgmental, the kind of man you assume will grow old without trouble. One night, he was driving home, and the next morning his parents were identifying his body. I remember standing at his funeral, listening to people talk about God's plan. I remember waiting for the peace they promised would come. It didn't. What I felt instead was anger, real anger, hot and disorienting, the kind that doesn't fit into neat prayers. I looked at his mother, barely able to stand, and I thought, if this is the plan, then something is wrong. That thought scared me more than his death. That anger didn't go away. It followed me. It burned quietly at first, then louder over the years. It burned through every tidy explanation I'd been given. I realized that the certainty I'd grown up with wasn't armor. It was a thin blanket on a very cold night. It looked comforting, but it didn't actually protect you when things got real. So I started searching. Not dramatically at first, just small cracks. I read things I wasn't supposed to read, asked questions I wasn't supposed to ask. I told myself I was strengthening my faith, but if I'm honest, I was trying to survive it. Over time, that search grew. I read the Quran. I read Buddhist teachings, Hindu philosophy, Jewish commentary, atheist arguments, mystics, scientists, poets. I wasn't looking to replace one set of answers with another. I was looking for something that didn't fall apart the moment life got ugly. And what surprised me most wasn't how different everything was. It was how similar. Strip away the language, the rituals, the clothing, the buildings, and you find the same hunger underneath, a longing to belong, to matter, to understand why we're here and how to live without destroying each other in the process. Every tradition, at its core, kept circling back to the same simple truths. Love people, help people, don't be cruel, be humble. Everything else was scaffolding. That realization didn't come all at once. It came slowly, painfully, with a lot of resistance, because once you see that, you can't unsee the other side. You start noticing how often religion is used as a weapon instead of a refuge. I've seen families torn apart over doctrine. I've seen people justify cruelty, exclusion, and hatred while claiming divine approval. I've seen fear dressed up as righteousness, and I understand why so many people walk away entirely. I really do. If you're someone who's been hurt by people who claim to speak for God, I want you to know this isn't me dismissing that pain. I've felt it. I've caused some of it too, if I'm being honest. But I don't think the answer is to stop asking the big questions. I think the tragedy is when we stop asking them altogether because someone gave us bad answers. Poison in the well doesn't mean the water was never real. As I got older, something strange happened. The more I learned, the less certain I became, and the more at peace I felt. I used to think not knowing was a failure. Now I think it's the most honest position a human being can take. I don't know exactly what happens after we die. I don't know which prayers, if any, reach something beyond us. I don't know who has it right. And for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that. Because certainty was exhausting. It required constant defense. Awe doesn't. Awe just asks you to pay attention. The older I get, the more I realize that existence itself is astonishing. That any of this is here at all is astonishing. That we get even a brief chance to love someone, to be known by someone, to sit in a quiet room and reflect on a long life. That's astonishing. No book or building can contain that mystery, and the appropriate response to it isn't rigid belief. It's humility. Every person you meet is carrying their own piece of the truth. Some of those pieces contradict each other. Some don't fit neatly together. That doesn't make them worthless. It makes them human. I've learned more about God, if that's even the right word, by listening to people I once disagreed with than I ever did by trying to win arguments. Here's what I've come to believe, if belief is the right word. It's not about what you say you believe. It's about what your beliefs do to you. If they make you smaller, harder, more afraid, more certain of your own superiority, something has gone wrong. But if they make you kinder, more curious, more patient with the complexity of other people, then you're probably moving in the right direction. I wish someone had told me that when I was young. I wish I hadn't wasted so much time trying to be right. I missed moments because I was busy defending ideas instead of loving people. I judged when I could have listened. I closed doors that didn't need to be closed. Some of those doors never opened again. If there's one thing 75 years has taught me, it's that life is unbearably short and unbearably precious. The people you argue with today might not be here tomorrow. The relationships you neglect because you're certain you'll fix them later might not give you that chance. Being right doesn't warm your hands at night. Love does. I don't know if God is a being, a force, a story we tell ourselves, or something beyond anything we can name. But I know this. Every time I chose compassion over certainty, the world felt a little more sacred. Every time I chose humility over judgment, life felt a little more meaningful. And every time I chose love over fear, I felt closer to whatever truth I'd been searching for all along. So if you're watching this and you're full of doubt, don't be ashamed of it. Doubt isn't the enemy of faith. It's evidence that you're paying attention. It means you care enough to wrestle with the questions instead of swallowing easy answers. That's not weakness. That's courage. Stay curious. Stay humble. Be gentle with yourself and with others. You don't have to have it all figured out. None of us ever do. Just try to leave the people you meet a little less alone than you found them. If this meant something to you, share your own journey in the comments. Not to convince anyone, just to be honest. And when this video ends, don't rush to the next one. Go be kind to someone. Call someone you've been meaning to call. Listen without trying to fix. That, more than anything I've learned in 75 years, feels like the closest thing to truth we're ever going to get.